Hey everyone, Dan Sehn, publisher of Argo Comics, and we are continuing our Director's Cut series with Argo 5, number 3. We'll be looking into the background of Argo 5, number 3. Starting off here with the cover by Brad Green. Brad Green had drawn the cover of Argo 5, number 1, and actually did a number of pinups of many of the super teams I have in Argo Comics. So I thought, who better to do this Titanic team-up type of cover than Brad Green. All right, it was a little early to do a crossover, but still, I had various creators who I had already met through conventions at this point, whose properties I enjoyed, whose work I enjoyed, and I decided to see if they were open to doing a team-up with their characters in Argo 5. Another main reason for me doing this issue was the passing of one of my friends, Pat Carlucci. I had known Pat through various conventions. I had gotten a number of pieces of art and sketchbooks from him, and before I was even really publishing regularly, I would talk to Pat and he would give me a lot of advice. He had been around the industry longer than I. His game plan at the time was to do prints and pinups of various established properties. Many comic artists do that at the conventions, but he did have his own characters that he had plans for publication. In that respect, unfortunately, he had passed, and his characters never saw print. Kind of as a tribute to him, and to fulfill that mission, I decided I would try to talk to Pat's wife, who I had been friends from the conventions as well, and see if she would be open to me, as I said, fulfilling that mission and getting Pat's characters in a book. So, I'll go a bit out of order here. I'll jump into a couple pinups that are within the book. Pat's character Acrocat, as done by Franchesco, who, as you saw in the last issue, the last video rather, did the cover of Argo 5 number 2. Does a bunch of covers for Zenescope. This is a Acrocat he had done at the time for Pat, as he was friends with Pat at the conventions as well. And Bill Mouse had done Witchy Boo, which is another character of Pat's. Hot Inks was Pat's website that he had, his characters, as well as all the prints that he had available and everything. Bill actually shared a unique relationship with Pat in the fact that I believe an issue of Nearer X Pat had inked, and I believe that was Pat's first published work. So inking over Bill Mouse for an issue of Nearer X. So it was, both of these had, I guess, some sentimental value to have these two artists do the pinups in this issue of Pat's characters. Again, as with the other properties that are displayed on the cover, we got Acrocat, we got Witchy Boo. Pat's characters are displayed. guess I'll go over a quick glossary to these characters. Up top is my own team, Sorority of Power. The other book I put out, besides putting out Argo 5. Argo 5, we can see in the center here. Scott Jones, a.k.a. Shade. Okay, I put his character within. He had done pages within this story. He had done, actually, the grand finale of this story. But his character, Morning Glory, is over here. Let's see who else we have. Well, actually, a friend of mine at my own comic store who self-publishes, Kevin McVeigh, his character, the Squirrel. Okay, he does a chapter within the book, and everyone in here pretty much has a chapter, except for Argo 5, of course, teaming up with Argo 5. With the exception of Bill Mouse's Skunk, Macy, who's Skunk's sidekick, they team up with Sorority of Power, so that's within this issue. Bill Mouse, also the creator of Nera X. As I said, Nera X, it was an issue of that comic that Pat Carlucci had inked. These two characters here are from Justin Leach's Majestic 12. It is an indie comic that I had picked up. Andrew Killian had done the artwork for that title. I love Andrew's work. He's done pinups for me. But he had done a full issue of that book, Majestic 12. And rounding out here, one of my earlier friends within self-publishing, Rich Bernatovech, he had done the Sentinels. Okay, I believe there's 4 trades, Sentinels Anthology, another Sentinels Anthology on the way. Rich is a great writer, great friend from the conventions. Luciano Vecchio had done the art in Sentinels. He had done the back cover, as I pointed out, at Argo 5 #1, as well as the chapter within here. So we do have the Sentinels artist doing the chapter of Sentinels in Argo 5 within this book. I will give the basics of the story, being that a villain has dispersed these orbs of power into various realities, and he strategically picked a number of realities so that if he can get these orbs of power in each and activate it, it will cause a chain reaction that will wipe out all of existence. As to his motives as to wanting to do that, I'll leave that out. But basically, Argo 5 now has to go to these different dimensions or realities and get the orbs back so that this chain reaction will not occur. And in doing so, they end up in the comic universe of the properties that I have just outlined for you. It was a bit of an undertaking to work with this number of creators and characters and publishers, but I really enjoyed doing so. The finished product I was quite proud of. As usual, I have a pinup section. I also made up a kind of a chart here, which will tell you everybody and their powers. So, you know, they're all within the book, but I figured a little extra thing there to help that. And also a bibliography that gives you the background of all the books that appear. Like I said, I'll give a closer look there. There's a Squirrel comic. Sorority Powers over there. Majestic 12. Near X. So I give a little spotlight on each. Final spotlight on that's some of Pat's work. Pat Carlucci. Actually, this is a Gladiator I had gotten from him at a convention. And I included this Gladiator by Pat Carlucci on the inside back cover. I'll go over the pinups, but before I do that, there's a special pinup in here of Argo 5. Okay. This one of Argo 5, let's see. It's done by Rob Durham, who I originally, here it is. I found it. It's right across from the thing. Thought it was up front or something. He originally had done this comic Phase 1. Okay? If you actually look at this cover, Phase 1, you can see that the Argo 5 cover is a tribute to that. Before Image Comics, which, came out with a slew of great independent superhero titles, I would always search out superhero teams, and this Phase 1 book was one of my favorite discoveries from Victory Comics. Rob Durham these days does Cave Woman, Bud Root's Cave Woman. I think that's Basement Comics. But I'll always most fondly remember him for his own property there, Phase 1. So, again, he did this tribute to that cover with Argo 5. I talk about my love of his original comic. And that was really something to kind of, again, pay tribute to one of my early inspirations in self-publishing. All right. So, on to the pinups. I had this Argo 5 by Ben Dunn. Ben Dunn, most noted for his creation Ninja High School and starting Antarctic Press. Blue Dynamo by Arley Tucker, who did the artwork in Argo 5 number 0. And this is actually the first time I met him in person. I've since gotten more pieces from him. Mike McKone, well known in Marvel and DC in the past. Let's see, Fantastic Four he did a great run on. Spider-Man he did a great run on. Avengers he did Young Justice and FF Big Town. It was a miniseries. I mean, just so many great works. Probably one of the best working artists today in comics. And speaking of which, Kevin Maguire did this Gladiator. Again, Kevin Maguire, you can't even begin to list everything he's done. I guess most noted for Justice League International, or the Bwahaha era, as people call it. I'm very fortunate to be able to get him to do that pinup. Andy Macdonald did Chain Reaction. I noted about Andy in the last review of Argo 5 number 2. Again, a local artist who I would see he's doing Marvel work right now. great artist, so almost every time I would see him at a convention, I would get something from him, either for the Argo 5 comic or Sorority of Power comic. And Rich Bernatovech, who I stated was the writer of the Sentinels and a good friend. He's also an artist and did this great Kassira pinup. So that is included as well. All right. Let's see if there was anything left. No, I went over the rest of the pinups and the bibliography. But as I said, it was a bit of an undertaking, and I wasn't too big yet on having like this is a done in one, so it's extra pages. But I wasn't too big on doing too many multi-part stories at this point. I wanted people to get a handle of who the characters were. So I guess before I got into too involved in the storyline, and I did have a lot of, again, these publisher friends and creator friends who I guess I was just in pretty heavy contact with at the time. So I said, let me do this while I can before I get too wrapped up in some big storyline. So Argo 5 number 3, already into a pretty big team up, but again, it was something that I felt strongly about doing and felt very happy with the end result. And that'll do it for Argo 5 number 3. And of course, we'll continue these director's cuts and give you a behind the scenes look at the creation of these issues of Argo 5. And thanks for watching.